On today's episode of the Luke Loses podcast, 4 years of recovery with Chris Tibbetts. I speak to Chris. There was a wake-up call, and it was life or death, and he chose life. I hope you enjoy it. What's up, losers? I am Luke, and this is Luke Loses. Now, remember, being a loser, that's a good thing because we're losing the weight, we're losing the unhealthy lifestyle, and we're losing that negative image we have for ourselves. Please remember that I have no fitness or nutrition education. Everything I talk about here is from asking questions, searching the internet, and my own personal experiences. If you go to www.lukelosespodcast.com, that's got all my social media links as well as other places to listen to this podcast, or you can listen to it right there off the website. Please call the loser line 323-920-LUKE or 5853. Leave me topic ideas, tips, concerns, whatever's on your mind. Call that number or text it. Leave me a message, and I will try to address it in a future episode. Also, if you know somebody or you yourself could provide value to me and the listeners, I would love to talk to you about coming on as a guest on the podcast. So reach out to me or have whoever you think would be a good fit reach out to me, and I would love to talk to you guys. The music that we're listening to right now is by Jake Simmons and the Little Ghosts. I will link all their places in the description of this episode. Check them out. If you like this song, you'll love the rest of it. So, like I said in the beginning, today I'm talking to Chris Tibbetts. He has an amazing story, and I'm really excited to share it with you guys. But I do want to put it out there that there is talk of suicide. So, if you're unable to handle that, please do not listen to this episode. It doesn't get graphic or anything, but it does come up. And I want to take the time to say that if you or a loved one is struggling with that, reach out to somebody. Please call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. It is 1-800-273-8255. That is 1-800-273-8255. All right, let's jump right into today's episode. All right, so today on the show, I have Chris Tibbetts. He has battled with his weight for so long, and he had a wake-up call, so he decided to make some changes. Well, he had to make some changes. So, Chris, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Thank you very much for inviting me. As you can tell, I have a British accent, and I'm currently in Newcastle upon Tyne in the northeast of England. But yeah, my name is Chris Tibbetts. I'm 49 and I'm a recovering overeater. I've been in recovery now for 4 years. So, but as you said, back in 2011, I had a wake-up call where the doctor basically said, if you don't lose weight, you'll be dead in 6 months. You would have thought that would make a difference, and you would think that I would have done something and made changes straight away. But it took me 6 years to finally accept I had a problem, and then another 4 years to finally get the problem under control and to grips with it. And now I am a recovering overeater. And food addiction, quite often people just go, you're greedy, you eat too much. To a certain extent, for a large part of the population, that could be true. But when you do have that addiction, it is worse than a narcotics addiction. It's worse than an alcohol addiction. It's worse than a gambling addiction, because all of those three addictions you can almost eliminate. You can restrict, you can put barriers in the way of doing it, but you have to eat.
Yep.
You can't not eat.
You mentioned in a video I watched of you, your trigger foods and stuff. And that was a big thing for me, is once I realized what was setting me off, I was able to, I mean, I'm not going to say it fixed me, but I was able to control it a little bit better.
I remember after my first couple of sessions, I went to meet my daughter who lived in Liverpool, and I was walking down the main street, and it was almost like every single fast food restaurant was shouting at me, calling at me. And I'd never experienced that before because I'd never actually acknowledged that I was triggered by these foods. But because I was making a conscious effort, it was almost like Ronald McDonald was there going, come on in, get a Big Mac. And it was like, I even had to say to my daughter, look, I need to go, because I honestly felt that these restaurants were just closing in on me. And that was the first time that had happened, because I was aware of it and I was acknowledging it. And I was trying to fight it, whereas previously I probably would have gone in somewhere and ate something, half an hour later gone in somewhere else, and I wouldn't have been aware of them, and I would have just been eating all day. And I think for that, I think the trigger foods is really important as well, because for me, I work really hard on getting to understand sometimes the ingredients in it. Now, pizza is an interesting one. So I can have a Pizza Hut pizza, no problem at all. I can have a couple of slices and I can go, thank you very much, put it up to one side. Domino's is a game over for me. There is something within either the sauce I use, whatever they put around the edge of the crust, or whatever within Domino's that is almost addictive to me. As soon as I hit it, I have to eat the entire pizza.
For me, what I try to do is I need to be more strict on it, is what I need to do. But I always say I try to eat like a normal person. If I want fast food, I go get fast food, but instead of getting 4 sandwiches and 2 large fries, I just get a sandwich and fry. Mm-hmm. And that works to an extent, but I've noticed that there's just days where it's like, I don't care what it is. I mean, if I had 10 pounds of salad, I would try to put it down just because I was craving that binge, that eating. It was like 2 months ago, I did an episode. I actually binged. I was like 160 days binge free. Mm-hmm. And there was a chain of events that happened. And next thing I know, I'm drinking the marinade that our pork chops were in. And it was like, I was begging myself to stop. And there was no getting around it. I couldn't do it. I couldn't walk away. Like you mentioned, just you're greedy or whatever, but it's so hard to fight that. And being around it, I've got 3 young boys. When I'm making them food, I might take a bite, and then that leads to another bite. And then I never counted that as my calorie intake. No. Because it was just a bite, but all that adds up.
It does. And it's remarkable. And I, again, as through my journey I've been on, and I work with people quite a lot now. And for me, my binge episodes I was originally a binge eater. Then I became an overeater because the binges stopped being 2 or 3 times a week and became every day. Yeah. And it became every meal. And it was just constant. But even so, what I try, and even personally myself and also with my clients I work with, you've got to have a certain degree of forgiveness, because the reason binging takes control is because once you've binged, you have the shame, you have the guilt, and then you have the feeling of, I'm a failure. You feel you've broken your promises to yourself. Inner critic inside of you is just waiting for that to happen to go, well, you've done that. Well, why don't you do it again? Why don't you've read all that? Why don't you just go and eat all those chocolate bars? And then the next day you wake up and feeling, well, I've ruined it now. And you're feeling quite lethargic. And before you know it, a weekend's passed and you smash 10,000 calories, and that inner critic in you is going, he's failed again. We'll just build on that. And I think for me, I still have episodes, but what I try to do is I'll catch it in the meal. But what I do is I go, right, I've done it, draw a line under it and stop myself. Because if you don't, if you carry on that shame and guilt, it will just eat at you, and it will make you do more and more things just to satisfy that need. And I think it's a really hard thing, but it can be broken. I think it's capturing it. And also, if it does go on for a day, then you just draw a line to that day and go, right, that was yesterday. Every morning I wake up with myself and I say, for the grace of God, can I get through the day without binging and overeating? Every single day I say that to myself in my affirmations, every morning, just to get through the end of the day. And it's every day for me, because I have to take it one day at a time, which we'll come to OA in a minute. But again, like any anonymous program, you take it one day at a time. Because if you'd asked me 4 years ago when I was smashing KFC at 3 o'clock in the morning and 2 bargain buckets to myself, would I be talking to you now 4 years time later, half the man I was? Then I would have said no.
You mentioned the 1 day at a time. So when I did that binge, I told my sponsor about it. So I added it to my app that I was using, the MyFitnessPal. And then I had to reset. I've got a counter on my phone that says, X amount of days from your last binge. That was really hard. But then contacting my sponsor and saying I messed up and I lost my days. The one thing he told me that really, really made a difference is he said, it's nice to be 30 days. It's nice to be 90 days. It's nice to be a year. But this program is a 24-hour program. If you can make it through today, you're golden. And then tomorrow, don't look for that 90-day chip. Don't look for that year. Just look for right now, work on right now. And like you mentioned a minute ago I'll mess up. And then I think to myself, well, I already messed up. So today I'll continue and I'll just fix it tomorrow. And I hate that. I got to pump the brakes and be like, whoa, like right now, I need to fix it right now. I don't need to worry about it in 6 hours. Let's do it right now.
And look, that's the right attitude to have. And it's one that you have to work really hard with people, because for a lifetime, it's almost been like an excuse for them, And I see it out all the time, the world we live in now, of this perfect body, this perfect plan, this, people go on their routines and go on their diet plans and they restrict their calories, right? And they wonder why they then get to Thursday, have a little blip, and they're driving into the drive-through and scoffing the food before they've even thought about it, because they're not even eating sensibly, not even eating to a plan. They're just harming themselves.
Yeah.
And I like to look at it in a way that if you're trying to weight loss plan and you're managing your eating and everything else, well, you have to look at it like a bank account, okay? And if you want to have these things, so I don't restrict anything from my diet. What I do know is I know how many calories my body needs to function now, and how much, if I want to lose weight, how many calories don't. Now, for me, that works, and I will go, right, if I'm going to go out at the weekend and I want to go and have that nice meal with my wife in the restaurant, I will pick the meal beforehand, so it's in my plan. Very unromantic, but actually I don't need to look at a menu, because I'm going to have the experience of being out for dinner with my wife. So I know I'll factor into my plan, and I go. And I'm not having to restrict myself. I'm not having to think. I'm not sat at the menu going, oh, look at that dessert. Well, no, I'm not having dessert because I'm having a very nice meal.
Yeah.
I'm not restricting. I think when people start restricting, you start opening the door for disordered eating.
Yep.
Completely open the door for disordered eating. And I think it's just, it's a real challenge. And I think, it is. The food industry has a lot to answer for, and I'm hoping at some point that the food industry will be held to account the same way that gambling, alcohol, and tobacco have been held to account.
Yeah,
I really do, because in the UK, for example, funding for disordered eating is negligible. There is very limited amount of it, and whereas on television, and I'll get off my high horse in a minute, but on television we have adverts. So you'll have all these adverts for gambling, but they're all going, play within your limits. If you get stuck, seek help. They all have to pay money into gambling charities to help people who are addicted. Just follow that advert by one for Just Eat, saying you can get cakes, pasties, everything you want delivered to your door and have as much as you want. How on earth can that be sensible?
Yeah, I did an episode where I did a lot of research on the food industry and how genetically altered food, and I even went down to like the potato chips, and like the crunch in them is not a normal crunch. It's made to trick your brain.
Yeah, and I think what's really quite interesting is there was an article. I think if you ever get, if you can ever get access to BBC iPlayer, or might even be on the internet, there's a doctor who has just done a TV series about ultra high processed food. As you said, this crunch in the potato chips. The food industry spends billions of dollars putting people on MRI scans, eating the food to see where the receptors, to see if this chemical's working, to see if that tastes, well, it's just, to me, that just is wrong. It's just wrong on every layer that companies are spending significant amounts of money to get you to eat things that are bad for you.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
I'll try and get a link and I'll send it to you, Luke. And hopefully they've got it on YouTube or something. But it's now, some of what he said I disagree with to a certain extent, but there's a general message. Basically, I think he ate ultra high processed food diet for a month, and he got cravings, he got addictions, and he did all the study. He said it was just crazy, and you can see why people who eat ultra high processed food do get addicted to food, because it's designed that way. It's created by the food companies that way.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, it's cheaper.
Oh yeah.
Which is crazy. If only I'd known this all those years ago.
Oh yeah, definitely.
If only I'd known this all those years ago. But yeah.
So going back to the beginning
mm-hmm.
of your journey, you said that you went to the doctor and you had that wake up call. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Why you went to the doctor? What happened?
So what happened is I was on a business trip to Dubai, and I'd gone out with my business partner and best friend at the time, and the travel agent had made a sort of mess up on the reservation, so we ended up having to share a room. And basically in the morning, I woke up, my best friend looked at me and went, "I am never, ever sharing a room with you again." He said, "I'll either sleep in the lobby or I'll sleep on the balcony, but I'm never sharing a room again." I went, "Why? What was the matter? I don't snore." He says, "No, you don't snore." He said, "It sounded like I was on the set of The Walking Dead. All I could hear was just like, throughout the night." And he says, "And then when you weren't making that noise, I thought you were dead because you weren't breathing." I was like, "Oh, okay, that's a bit odd, but yeah, okay." And then when I was on the trip, I felt a bit sort of under the weather, but I thought it's just that, being a crazy Englishman, we were playing golf in the middle of the day in the sort of 45-degree temperatures, and nobody else on the golf course about us two mad Brits. But I thought, I'll go and get myself checked. I thought, I'm 39, coming up to 40. Perhaps I should go and have a look. So I booked in to see the doctor, and he's was a good friend of mine. We've sort of played rugby in the past together, and came in and he said, "You're looking well." I went, "Okay, that's doctor speak for you put on a bit of weight." And I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." He says, "What's the problem?" He says, "Just take a seat." And I said, "What's the problem?" And the seat, tried to get in the seat, and it was quite sort of tight, and I struggled, sat in it. And he said, I said, "I had a problem sort of breathing, and I just feel a bit under the weather." So I went and hopped onto the scales. And as I stepped onto them, they broke. The dial went round all the way around, went to 0 and never came back in.
Oh, wow.
And he looked at me and went, "They're brand new." I went, "Sorry, doc." He says, "Right, okay." And now on that scale, it went up to, was it 26 stones? What was that? 200, 350, 360, 375 pounds. And it was broken. So he looked at me and says, "Right, okay." He says, "If you go to the local hospital, they've got some sit on scales, you sit on a seat and it weighs you." And he says, "And while you're there, we'll get you to do your blood test and some other tests." And he says, "And come back in a week and get the results." So I sort of went back a week later, and I came in, went up to see him. And the first thing I noticed was there was a wider chair in the room, so I could sit down. I thought, that's a bit odd, but the wider chair. So I sat down. He says, "I haven't got all the results back yet, but to be honest, I'll cut to chase." He says, "If you don't make some radical changes, you're going to be dead in 10 years. And I was like going, "Okay, that's 10 years. Doctors are a bit dramatic some of the time. That's okay. A bit like you with I won't go back in." He says, "You're borderline diabetic. You got high cholesterol. You got high blood pressure." He said, "You good chance of vascular dementia because you've got it in the family. You've got, early onset arthritis in your joints. And he says, do you want me to carry on? I went, no, I think that's a pretty good list. He says, I'm still waiting for the blood oxygen test to come back. But they should be back in sort of like tomorrow, day after. So come back then and we'll go through the plan. He says, but you really need to think about making some drastic changes to your life. And I left thinking, doctor's always a bit dramatic. Yeah, I'll lose a bit of weight. I'll be okay. It'll be fine. And I went back 2 days later, and this was what really hit me, Luke. Okay. Now I don't know about in America, but in the UK, when you go to a doctor's surgery, the receptionists are the gatekeepers, and they're really strict and they're really quite officious, and they make you stay back, and it's like give you information, and they rule doctor's surgeries like a rod of iron. I walked in, and the receptionist says, "Oh, hello, Mr. Tibbetts. Yes, doctor's waiting for you in consultation room 1, or it's on the ground floor. He's there waiting for you." Now, firstly, they've never been nice to me. You get a grunt if you're lucky. 2, I've never been to consultation room downstairs. And 3, the doctor's never been waiting for me. I've always waited for the doctor.
Yeah.
Walked in, straight there. Got in, and he said, take a seat. I went, okay. He says, right, I'm going to give it you straight. He says, forget 10 years. He says, if you do not change your life today, you'll be dead in 6 months.
Wow.
I was like, what? He says, in fact, you're a miracle that you are alive today. You haven't died in your sleep. You haven't had, a stroke. You haven't had, your statistics, your readings are just crazy. You should be dead. I went, okay. He said, so we're going to need to put you on a course of medication. We need to get you hooked up. I need to go to hospital to do these sleep tests. We need to go in the lab. I was like, whoa, doc. I'm not going to become your lab rat. All right. You give me the bad news. Let me digest it. Let me sort it out. He says, what do I need to do to stop you pumping me through medicine and everything else? He says, well, you need to prove to me that you can start losing weight and start bringing your blood pressure down and start making radical changes to your lifestyle. Now, to me, Luke, I like a challenge. And throughout my life, I'd yo-yoed. Never got as big as I was at that point, but I had a tried and tested method for dropping weight really quickly. I don't recommend this to your listeners, by the way, but it was in the morning, I'd have a big bowl of cornflakes with 1% milk. At lunchtime, I'd have a big bowl of mashed potatoes with a couple of tins of tuna fish. And in the evening, I would have some more cornflakes with milk. Tried and tested. Worked every time. I went, you know what? I'm going to go to that plan. That's going to work. Always works for me. And it did. Lost weight. But then I was thinking, the doctor got wise. He says, you're doing really well at this. He says, what changes have you made? And I went, oh, I'm doing this. He went, right. No, you can't do that. I said, okay, then what do I want to do? He says, look, we need to do it on a balanced plan. You need to sort of, make sure that you're feeling nutrients and everything else. And I was like, okay, fine. He said, so I had a chat with nutritionists, and I said, well, I'll get my exercise up. I'll do everything else. But when you're as big as I was, I didn't want to go anywhere near a gym. I probably couldn't go anywhere near a gym. And within this situation I had my first wife, it was a very toxic relationship. And she had always used food either as a comfort or as a weapon. I realized I had to make some changes there. I got quite fortunate in the fact that I had a job come up that meant I had to go and work in London during the week. So I got a flat in London, it had a gym underneath it, and I could control my food during the week. Really easy. Had a nutrition plan, went shopping, and basically you saw my fridge, it was just like vegetable salad, whole wheat. It was just perfect. The problem was when I came home, I was going back into that environment that was full of junk food, processed food. It just didn't serve me. And my wife made a big effort at trying to derail me, because obviously I was dropping weight really rapidly. Because as you'll know, when you're a big fella and you start moving more and using calories, you do lose weight quickly.
Yeah.
Because I've worked it out at the size I was, literally just moving functioning on a day when I was the weight I was, I'd burn 4,000 calories just living. So dropping weight was quite, thing to do. But Christmas had passed. I sort of managed to scrape through Christmas. And then got into January and I started making some progress. And then found myself at PT and I was thinking, right, okay, I'm starting to understand a bit more about nutrition. And it was coming up to my 40th birthday. And then I realized that actually every time I was going home, it's getting derailed. And I fell off the wagon. And for a couple of weeks, I just started eating rubbish again. And I was like back into the old ways. And I realized that if I didn't get myself out of that relationship, then I was going to die. Because it was, as you know, when you fall off, it quickly becomes a slippery slope.
Yeah.
I was quickly back to always. So, okay. So basically, I thought, right, it's either my life or my marriage. And quite often I talk to people, and you have to make sure that if you're on this journey, the people around you who've got to support you, you've got to be in the right peer group. You've got to have people who are on the same path with you, because if they're not, they are going to derail you either deliberately or, without trying, because they just see you as Big Chris. Why isn't Big Chris having 3 desserts? Why isn't Big Chris finishing all the leftovers? Why is he eating that food? Why is he doing this? And I just left it and started to make some real progress, and it was great. And I made a trip back up to North Wales when I was living at the time, and I managed to bump into my childhood sweetheart from high school. And she looked at me and she went, "What have you done to yourself?" Because she remembered me, this athletic 16, 17-year-old guy. Now, she'd actually seen me throughout our life when I was big, when I was with my wife and children. So she had a little bit of idea. She says, "What have you done?" I said, "Well, I'm losing weight, honest. Let me show you a photo of what I was." And she's like, "Wow." And she says, "But how has this happened?" And we started getting closer, and then she moved to London with me. And I had this sort of positivity, and I was making progress, and I lost weight, and I'd got myself within a year. I'd lost probably about 140 pounds. So I got myself down to about 24 stone. I'd done really well. Really well. I was really comfortable. And I looked different. Now, I'm 6'4". I'm a big guy. I used to play rugby. I hold my weight really well. So that was fine. But then carried on progressing, and I eventually got down to probably about 240 pounds. I thought, wow, this is great. So I stopped. And then I got comfortable. Then the old habits kicked in. Then I thought, oh, I've got this now. I started, eating donuts at work. I started having takeaways more frequently. I started drinking beer more often. I started, in my eyes, living my life because I'd done so well. But then that transpired to be putting weight gain on, and I went back on, and I then put 280 pounds. I was thinking, right, okay. Then I went to 300 pounds. I was like, right, okay, something needs to give here. And Carl and I were going to get married. So okay, reverted time, got my PT back, followed the nutrition plan, lost weight, brilliant. Got married, fantastic. Then started putting weight back on again, and I got stuck in this vicious cycle of just losing weight, putting it off, because as soon as I wasn't on a diet or I wasn't on a plan, I had no control over my eating. So I'd binge, I'd overeat, and I'd stress eat. And it then came to a point that, I realized that I was putting food over my family. I put in my desire to have food over family. And there was always an occasion, we were on holiday and we went to feed some ducks at a duck pond. And I said to Carmen and our daughter Edna, I said, so I'll go and get some bread. Now, I know, and I say this every time I do podcasts, I know you shouldn't feed ducks bread. And as I'm walking into the supermarket, I walk in. And as I walked in, there's this freshly baked cinnamon swirls, 4 of them in a 4-pack. Now, a sensible person would go, wouldn't that be nice to share with Carmen and Ebony? And if I'm lucky, I might get an extra one because there's 4. No, my thought process was, how can I eat that packet before I get back to Carmen and Ebony?
Yeah. I've been there.
So of course that's what I did. But as I'm coming around the corner with the cream on my face, just getting the crumbs, I put the last bite in my mouth. They were just, "What are you doing?" I went, "Oh, I'm just eating a Simmons swirl." And I went, "Did you not get any first?" I went, "No." She went, "Oh, you greedy so and so." And then she said, "Oh, I just had the one." Now, the thing with lying is it always comes back to catch up on you. This particular incident came back and caught up with me in December last year when I did the video, which you talked about, because Karma looked at me and went, "You had 4. You only told me it was 1, so it still came back and bit me in the backside."
Yeah.
But again, that was an episode, so I lied. And throughout this time, I started putting weight back on, and Karma would go, "You okay, darling? Had a good day at work?" And she says, "Oh, what did you have to eat today?" I went, "Oh, just the normal. Yeah, I went to Tesco's and got a meal, got a sandwich and a drink and some potato chips. It was fine." She's like going, "Really?" She went, yeah. I hadn't, of course. I'd got into work. I'd gone to Starbucks. I'd got a full fat caramel macchiato. I'd got a cinnamon swirl at Starbucks. Then at lunchtime, I'd got 2 sandwiches, a couple of potato chips and chocolate bars. And in the afternoon, I had another Starbucks. And then on the way home, I might have just stopped and grabbed myself, a sausage roll or something. And then got home and said, "What's for tea, darling? I'm starving."
Yeah.
She loves us. "You're putting weight on." I went, "Oh, my darling." She says, "Yeah." And of course, I knew the clothes were getting a bit tighter. And because I'd done this journey, Luke, I had 3 wardrobes. I had a slim wardrobe, I had a not so slim wardrobe, and I had my fat wardrobe. And all I did was gradually go through the clothes and then go back down to them and go back and go back down. So I subconsciously started switching clothes without acknowledging the fact I was putting weight on. And then that was a real problem. And again, I just overate and I was comfort eating, but I never really saw myself as a person who had a problem around food because I'd always been Big Chris. I'd always been the guy who ate everything. I was always the one who, if you couldn't finish your starter, send it to me. I'd always one who finished off the dessert. I was, that was me. I was the guy who always did the eating challenges. I was a guy when we had an Indian restaurant that my rugby pals would go and do the challenge because we'll get the meal for free. And there's always something about eating the hottest Indian curry with all the extras, which nobody should even be able to do, but I used to do it, get a meal for free. Because that was just what I did, So that was just in my psyche. But what I then realized is in 2017, I was in a corporate job, really senior role. I had lots of traveling, lots of stress. And I was really good at hiding my photograph and never had my photograph taken. And in February, I'd had a breakdown at work. And my emotional eating went into overdrive. I was eating everything constantly. I reached out to the HR team and I went, "Look, I can't cope. I've got a problem. I need to get some sort of help." So the company had private healthcare, so they said, "Okay, go. We'll check you into a clinic." So went into clinic for my addictions, and I lasted 4 days before I broke out, before I escaped. I had an altercation in the first group session with somebody who obviously just newly qualified and was perfect shape, perfect everything. And I was saying, "How can you even begin to relate with my problems?" So have you ever been at Krispy Kreme at 3:00 in the morning, waiting for the fresh batch to come out so that you can get them and eat them on your way back to your hotel? Have you ever been surfing the bins looking for yesterday's pizza that your wife threw out because you wanted it? Says, if you can't, then I'm sorry. How can you even try and support me or even talk to me? Now, people may have a different view and go, "Well, it's about the tools and techniques," but I want somebody in that room to actually understand what I'm talking about and where I've come from. And I then had an altercation with a chief therapist, chief psychologist, and I said, "Listen, you and I are going to go, we're going to argue. We're not going to see eye to eye. You're trying to do it one way. I don't see it. So I left that treatment and then went to see a good friend of mine. And she'd had lots of issues in the past. And she'd said, AA and she'd done Narcotics Anonymous. She's done a lot of programs. She says, I seriously think you've got an eating problem. I seriously think, you've tried everything, but I think you've got a problem. She says, I don't think you're going to diet and you're going to train your way out of this one. She says, because it's failed. And she'd seen her over the 3 years. She'd seen my meltdown. Well, she'd known me for 5 years. She'd seen my meltdown. She says, I've seen it through too many times before. She says, have you thought about Overeaters Anonymous? I was like, what? Who?
Yeah.
No, never heard of them. Never heard of them. I went, she said, well, give it a try. And the thing that was really funny is I went to seek help. Now, when I went to go into the clinic, my wife thought I was in the US on a business trip because I didn't tell her because I was ashamed. And they said, you're going to be away for 2 weeks. You need to be there for 2 weeks. I said, Carmen, I'm off to the US for business for 2 weeks because I was ashamed. And obviously, when I came home earlier, she says, oh, meetings got cancelled. Like, I've made up some rubbish. She did ask where was my luggage tag off my suitcase, which I need to remember next time to do that. But again, getting caught out as a liar because I was ashamed. So I went to OA, and for 6 months, I didn't tell anybody. The only person who knew was Ruth. Didn't tell my wife, didn't tell anybody. I just went to business. And it was when I was doing step 4, I was in the probably darkest I'd ever been. And I found myself in Manchester at the top of the building. Now, bear in mind, I was in recovery then. I was losing weight as well because I'd got things under control. I was doing really well. And I'd found myself on the top of the building, going, if I make this look like an accident, my wife gets a fantastic payout from work. She gets my in-service benefits. Do you know what? I'll be rid of this pain because I don't actually know if I can get through this. I don't actually know if I can get through this. This is just, I'm just a failure. I know I'm going to fail, and I know that I've just messed up and I've ruined so many people's lives. I looked at my children's lives and I looked at the problems they're facing, and I looked at who I've been as a son, who I've been as a husband. I was like going, this is just, I can't see if I'm going to come out of this, and I'll ever be grateful to my sponsor because of the fact that she managed to just talk me out of it. And she went, you've reached the bottom now. There's only one thing you can do. She says, you need to take a real deep breath and you need to push yourself up from the bottom of this abyss as fast as you can and start climbing out of this because you've reached it. There is nowhere else for you to go because you made a choice not to jump.
Yeah.
So you made the choice to live, so you need to live. And that's what I did. And that's what I'm doing now. And I think it's just really important. And I think, again, I understand because I've been to the program, the secrecy behind it and why they want to keep it closed and else. But, I just think there's so much good work done that's not promoted well enough.
Yeah.
And what's even worse is then when you do talk about it, it's like Fight Club. First rule of Fight Club, don't talk about it. First rule of OA is don't talk about it.
Yeah.
And when you do, you can't be a member anymore. And that's the situation I'm in. But do you know what? I don't mind because I will bang on the drum about them. I will get people to go and see them. I will, and don't get me wrong, it's like most things, it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. But if it works for you, then it's great. And again, do you know the comedian Russell Brand?
Yeah.
Have you read his book Addiction?
I have not, no.
I would get it, Luke. It's the best description of the 12 steps I've ever read in sensible format for somebody.
I think I've seen it on your Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the book. Yeah. Honestly, it's got quite a lot of profanity in it because it's Russell Brand, but the way he just describes them, honestly, it's the best way I've ever heard the 12 steps described.
Yeah.
It really is. And when I read that, I was thinking, do you know what? That makes a lot of sense. But anyway, yeah. So that's what I got to.
Man.
And here I am now.
It's crazy the things that you've gone through. And OA has taught me, like, I thought I was just weird. I thought I was, you know, I didn't think I had an issue, but if I did, it's not that big of a deal, or I'm the only one. And I went to a meeting on Zoom around or for Thanksgiving, and there were hundreds of people in that video chat. And it was like, this person is for bulimia, or this person's for binge eating. And like every one of those people get me, and they can relate to me no matter what their issue is. And with OA, it's crazy how it's opened my eyes to it's not just about the food. It's about being a better person, doing better. Tomorrow I'm going to do better than I did today.
Yeah.
And I credit OA so much for that. And like you said, the secrecy and all that, but for the longest time, I would just say I'm in a 12-step program, for issues with food. And finally I was like, I might be able to help somebody by telling them about this program. So I decided to just, all right, well, it's Overeaters Anonymous. That's what I'm on. And I dropped the website, and it's amazing to see the difference and what realizing the issues can do for you.
Yeah, and I think you put on that point that there's different eating disorders within Overeaters Anonymous. My sponsor was anorexic, right? And I was like going, she's recovering, but she's still really small, tiny, right? There's me, big fella. I went, seriously, how on earth are you going to get what I'm feeling?
Yeah.
And she went, and she was quite tough, and she just basically just went through me, gave me such a going over, and I was like, okay, yeah, you do get it then, I'm sorry. But it's just that realizing you're not on your own, realizing that you're not the freak, realizing that you don't have any power over food. Yeah. So acknowledge it and find a way to deal, finding those tools to deal with it. And again, this whole thing about being a better person, something about showing gratitude, apologizing, realizing that you've done wrong, because quite often in this world, people just go, it's flippant remarks are made far too easily. You look at the keyboard warriors in social media, it's just like ridiculous. People just need to take accountability. People need to start saying nice things to people.
Yeah.
People need to start showing some appreciation, some gratitude. That's what we need to be doing, because then the world will start being a lot better place.
Yep. I do want to ask you though, so like with all your weight loss and your changes that you made, if somebody was, let's say I'm a month into my changes and my journey, and I'm struggling, because I'm sure even with you, like in any part of this race that we're in, or whatever you want to call it, there's always struggles with it, and whether you're in the beginning or the end, it's still hard. If I was in it for a month and I'm struggling, what kind of advice could you give me to keep going, or what do you recommend for me to do?
Firstly, give yourself a break. Give yourself a partner. Give yourself some appreciation, the fact that you're on this journey, the fact that you're taking steps, the fact that you're a month in and remember who you were a month ago. Sometimes people are so focused on the end goal, they never take a moment to look back. They never go and look at that first photo they took and then that one a month in.
Yeah.
They never give themselves the credit they deserve for accepting they've got a problem. So for me, if you're a month in, give yourself a pat on the back. Give yourself that kudos that you're making changes. And acknowledge that you're going to slip up. Like we said at the beginning, it's about getting through each day. So yeah, you're 30 days in, great, 30 days in. But tomorrow's a new day. And I think it's just accepting that you will slip up, accepting that life's not perfect, and also making sure that you control the controllable. I see too many people worrying about things, people are, what am I going to do in 6 months' time? Forget 6 months' time. What are you going to do tomorrow? What are you going to do today, and what are you going to plan for tomorrow? I don't care about 6 months down the line. It's irrelevant. Yeah. I had people going, oh, well, I want this quick fix. I said, no, what you want to do is it took you a lifetime to get in this situation. Have a bit of faith, have a bit of confidence in the process.
Yep.
Do not beat yourself up. And if you're a month in, I need you to do an inventory of your friends to make sure they're supporting you. I need you to get rid of people who aren't supporting you. Because after a month, it starts getting difficult. For the first couple of weeks, you got motivation. So if you're a month in, I want you to start looking at your habits, looking at your routine, looking at where you could potentially slip up.
Right.
Do you have a routine? Do you have a schedule? Because if you don't have a morning routine and you don't have a schedule, you are leaving yourself open to slip. You're leaving yourself open to fail. Yeah, because when you don't have the schedule, that's when things can slip up. That's when you're not going to hit your workout. I'm too busy. Well, if you schedule it, how are you too busy? Because people always find time to watch Netflix. If you want to watch Netflix, go on the treadmill and watch Netflix then. The other thing I'd also give the person the advice, Luke, is let's start small with the promises you make to yourself. But make sure you keep those promises. Do what you said you would. Because quite often we'll make promises to other people and we wouldn't fear of breaking them. But you know what? You'll break a promise yourself in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
So let's start small with the promises. Just promise me, if you've not worked out for 10 years, promise me you'll get one workout in a week. If you can get one in, then let's get to 2 in. Then we get 2 in, let's get 3 in. But don't come to me saying you didn't work out 5 times a week if you've not worked out for 10 years, because you're just talking bull. And you're going to fail. Yep. And guess what? When you fail, that great negative inner critic on your shoulder is going to jump all over you and go, you're a failure. Let yourself down again. So I always say, start out small with those little promises, because guess what? They build. They build. And once you get those promises, then you get a bit stronger. Then you get a bit bigger, your promises. Then you can start saying, yeah, I'm going to hit £100 weight loss. Yeah, I'm going to hit £200 weight loss. Yeah, I'm going to run a half marathon. Yes, I'm going to do a triathlon. But, there's no way. I remember, in fact, actually, when I first moved to my home in Cheshire, one weekend we went and the roads were closed or disrupted, and there was a triathlon. I was like going, wow, that's quite impressive. I thought, well, I'll never be able to do a triathlon. A year later, I was competing in the same race.
That's awesome.
Next year, so I've had to retire from competitive rugby, even though I'm 49, because I'm competing in an Ironman next year. And I can't train for an Ironman and play rugby. One, I'm likely to get injured, and 2, they're different ways of training. And I need to drop another, I hate to say this, 25 pounds for the triathlon. I dropped 12 kilos or something. So I've got to drop 25 pounds, only because it's less weight to haul through the water, run around, because I'm running a half marathon. I'm going to be swimming a couple of miles, and I'll be doing, something like a 100-mile bike ride. So I need to, the less weight I'm carrying.
Yeah.
But I've got a year to do that. And that's what I'm doing. So my 50th year, I'm going to do a half Ironman. But
that's amazing.
But if you'd said to me in the beginning, could I do that? No. I wouldn't have been able to, I would have said no. And if I'd said at the start of my recovery, no. But all I'm doing is I'm increasing my commitment. I'm increasing my promises to myself, because I'm confident that I'm going to be able to deliver them. Because every time, and I'll reiterate this point to people, every time you break a promise to yourself, you're eating away at your self-worth. You're eating away at your self-esteem. You're eating away at your self-love. And that is when you're opening the door for your binging to come back, your emotional eating to come back, because you're filling that void.
Some great stuff.
Yeah.
Well, before we wrap it up, I usually let my guests, if they've got something they want to talk about, if they want to bring something up that we didn't touch on or whatever, now would be the time to do it. Is there anything that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think I've enjoyed, actually, I mean, to be honest, Lee, I've really enjoyed this podcast because this is probably the first one I've done with somebody who's at the beginning of the journey, so to speak, and who is documenting it and doing a great job. So firstly, kudos to you, Luke, for doing this, because I think you're going to help so many people.
Thank you.
And for me, I had a corporate job, really well-paid corporate job, until September last year, and I got made redundant. I was happy because I didn't like it, and I was going to go back into the corporate world, just be a management consultant, quite good money, and I was comfortable in what I was doing. And then I delivered a talk to a group of men about my journey, and I had that epiphany that said, I need to do this for a living. I know it is never going to make me the money that my corporate job or my consulting could make for me. But you know what? I don't care, because I've decided in life I never want a single man or woman to suffer the way I suffered. I don't want it. They shouldn't have to. So my mission in life now is just to ensure, my highest values, which I've done Dr. Demartini's values test, is to serve, support, and coach people. And that is what I'm doing in my life now, is that I now coach emotional eaters. I now coach people into eating properly. I support people in their process. I will train them if need be. And I will coach them on nutrition, and I'll coach them on eating correctly and getting rid of that dreaded D word. Because the only reason you should be on a diet, right, is for a specific reason. So I'm currently on a diet for the triathlon. Now, I hate saying this to my clients because I'm going, I have to eat currently on my training regime 3,800 calories a day. And they went, I wish I could. I went, 3,800 healthy calories.
Yeah.
We can all eat 3,800 calories eating cookies, chocolate, and pizza. Not a problem. Yeah. But 3,800 calories of healthy calories is a lot of food.
That is a lot of food, yeah.
Yeah. The problem I've got in 6 weeks' time is that goes up to 4,300 calories a day. I'm dreading that.
That's like I said I wanted to be a bodybuilder. Like I wanted to get real big.
Yeah.
One, I can't afford to eat what they have to eat to get that size. And then two, as even as a binge eater and an overeater, I don't think I can do, like, I saw a list of what Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, eats in a day. That's insane. Like how?
Yeah. You're literally spending when you're not working out, I think you're eating.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm struggling the same. So I'm like thinking, it's going to be a real challenge. I'm going to love protein shakes again. I can see it. And oats but it's a short-term thing. It's I know it's there for a reason. And another quote that I heard, which I think is great, is there are only two things you should use scales for. One is if you're in a boxing match, or two if you're jumping out of an airplane. Because apart from that, you should be looking at the tape measure, looking at your photos.
Yeah.
Because I know, in fact, I've got photos of me at my slimmest, and then me when I was start of the rugby season, when I was, was it a stone heavy, 14 pounds heavier, and I look slimmer, 14 pounds heavier. It's bizarre. So, but anyway, So for me, I am just passionate about people not suffering like I had to suffer, and that's what I do. So I've dedicated my life. I've turned my back on very lucrative job offers, and it's just about getting my message out. Hence why I love the opportunity to come and talk to you, Luke, and talk to people. And I love working with my clients, and I love, supporting people through their journey and getting help. And if I can help people, I will. And that's all I want to do is help people.
For me, like that's part of the recovery is like helping, and accountability is a huge one. Like, so I'm not a sponsor. I haven't been a sponsor, but I've helped people guide them into where they need to go. And that helps me stay on track because I don't want to let them down and I want them to do good. So I have to do good.
Yeah. Honestly, the highest level of accountability, Luke, is to help and coach people. Because you know what? My coach said to me, Alex, he says, what you've got to remember is imagine you've got a TV crew following you around, right? Would you want your clients to see you behaving in that way?
Yeah.
And that's the way I think all the time now, is that, when I'm going to reach, don't get me wrong, I do eat junk food from time to time. When I'm talking about, well, do you journal in the morning? And I go, I can't be bothered. When I talk about getting the right amount of sleep, I can't be bothered. When I talk about, well, do I get the right hydration? And I go, do you know what? No, I'm just not going to bother. I have to set the standards. I have to do what I said I would. Because if I don't, how on earth are people going to take me seriously?
Yeah.
And I think for that's what I think is really important. I think the accountability piece is so, so true. And by helping people, it keeps you accountable.
If somebody wanted to reach out to you, where would they do that?
I've got a website, which is www.transform365.co.uk. On my Instagram, I've got two accounts. I've got the business one, which is at ttransform365. And then there's my personal one, which is at the Emotional Eating Coach UK. And then our Facebook is at ttransform365.
Awesome. And I will link all those in the description of this episode. So if anybody wants to get a hold of you,
if anyone's listening or wants help, I do run a free emotional eating mini course where I've got videos and useful tips on Facebook. So if they're interested.
So I was looking at your link on your Instagram today, and there's a lot of stuff on there that you offer that's I'm probably gonna download and take advantage of some of that stuff. So
yeah, absolutely. It's all about sharing. It's all about helping.
Well, Chris, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you for sharing your story, and congrats on your progress, and keep it up. Good luck on your Ironman.
Thank you very much. Well, you can start watching the journey because it'll be documented on Instagram, so you can enjoy seeing me suffer.
I will definitely do that. Chris, thanks for coming on and sharing your story. I really enjoyed talking to you. And I want to say it again, help is available. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 1-800-273-8255. Do not hesitate to call. If you enjoyed any of this episode, please leave me a rating and a review on Apple Podcast. I would appreciate it so much. Don't forget to go check out www.lukelosespodcast.com. So that is that. As always, stay positive, do the work, trust the process, and I will see you next week.